Welcome back to One Piece Explained. We just got the official trailer for Season 2 of the live-action One Piece series, and there are so many little details and Easter eggs that you may have missed, so in this video, I'll be breaking them all down. If you're new to the channel, I've been doing this ever since the first teaser trailer for Season 1, so if you're interested in going back and seeing what you may have missed in all of those episodes, or any of the promotional material and trailers since then, be sure to check out the playlist in the description. Before we get into things, I just want to give a brief spoiler warning. As always, these videos are intended to be entertaining and educational for new and old fans alike, which means I try my best to dance around some of the bigger reveals in the series so you can enjoy One Piece at your own pace without getting something ruined for you. That said, I will be talking in detail about things that are covered up through the Drum Island arc, which is where this season will leave off on, so continue at your own risk. And lastly, I just want to thank everyone for sticking with me throughout these years while I covered the live action. I love talking about One Piece, and I'm very grateful to all of you for enjoying my videos. That said, let's get into this trailer. We open on a shot of the Going Merry sailing through the ocean as we hear the voice of Tony Chopper, who's being brought to life by Michaela Hoover, asking what a pirate is. Mark Herlock's Dr. Herlock responds explaining that a pirate is someone who has adventures, dreams, and never gives up. This is of course reimagining a scene from Chopper's flashback where Herlock instills in the young reindeer what the skull and crossbones represent. And I love that this is how the trailer starts off, as Chopper's question immediately gets answered by an incredible montage of the adventures of the Straw Hat crew, and caps off with Luffy protecting Herlock's flag at the very end, but more on that later. We see Herlock and Chopper looking out into the sea at nighttime, though this sort of scene doesn't really happen in the manga. We can probably understand this to be part of the year that Chopper spent alongside Herlock, and while we only see Herlock from behind in this trailer, we did get a look at him during the small Chopper themed teaser from a few weeks ago. During this sequence, there's this shot of Luffy looking up at the execution platform in Loguetown, which we've seen a lot in previous footage, and as I've mentioned in prior videos, it seems like many of the scenes in this season will be reimagined to take place either at nighttime or indoors, since dimly lit conditions make it a lot easier for any of the imperfections in CGI to look less noticeable. And it looks like they've updated the color grading on the scene from the first time we saw it in that original first look teaser trailer back in August of 2025. Back then it was very lit up, with the lights from the carnival in the background really popping. I wonder which one will end up in the final cut of the episode. We also have this incredible scene of Luffy climbing up the Drum Rockies with Nami on his back. At first glance, you may wonder where Sanji is, since in the source material, Luffy manages to carry him by his coat with his teeth. It looks like this may be even too much of a stretch for live action Luffy, but if you look closely underneath Nami's arm, you can sort of make out a tuft of blonde hair flapping in the wind, making me think Sanji may be tied to his backside on the lower half of his torso, or perhaps even hanging off Luffy's waist. Luffy is of course wearing his red winter coat that we see him with initially in the Drum arc in the source material, before he eventually borrows the yellow jacket from Nami. This takes us to the Netflix logo on the Going Merry, as we get some gorgeous piano sprinkled behind Luffy's motivational speech to the Straw Hats about how they are one step closer to achieving their dreams now that they have made their way into the Grand Line, which is the tagline for the season. While the live action does a great job of using its own original music alongside the occasional rendition of iconic One Piece tracks like We Are, the song that plays throughout this trailer is actually Come Sail Away by the American rock band Styx. Now, not only is this track just a banger in its own right, it plays into the themes of this season and One Piece as a whole on so many levels. Come Sail Away is the fourth track on Styx's 1977 album The Grand Illusion, which is coincidentally a very apt description of the Grand Line, just as we get reminded by Igaram later in the trailer as he explains to Luffy that it is a dangerous place and he should be careful who he trusts. While I can't play it for you in this video, the track starts off with this playful piano melody that is very reminiscent of Baroque era music, with these fluttering notes straight out of something you'd hear from Fugue in G minor or any sort of harpsichorded piano piece from that time. This is of course very fitting to set up the group of antagonists that we'll see throughout this season, Baroque Works, a criminal organization whose motto is secrecy. As far as lyrics go, Come Sail Away uses sailing as a metaphor for chasing your dreams and seeking freedom with your friends above all else. But as the song progresses, things start getting a little religious or supernatural depending on how you see it, as it evokes the image of angels appearing before the sailors, which should send all my fellow diehard Skypiea fans into a fit of excitement. Fingers crossed for season 4. And if that was not enough, eventually it suggested that these angels were actually aliens with ships that fly through the skies. Like I said, this song encapsulates the story of One Piece on so many levels. We find that Luffy's speech is taking place in the bar on Whiskey Peak, which is a nice touch, as in the source material, we only really see each of the Straw Hats partying with the other townsfolk and not each other. So this is a great opportunity for Luffy to celebrate his crew's accomplishments. Of note, Zoro is the only one who is not overly ecstatic about the situation, which works to show how he's silently keeping his distance from the too good to be true hospitality that they've been met with. As for outfits, here, Nami can be seen in her appearance from the chapter 147 147 color spread. This is actually the design that the anime used for her in the Whiskey Peak arc, while in the manga, she continued to wear her blue tank top from Reverse Mountain. Usopp's outfit is taken from the cover page of chapter 137, while Zoro and Sanji's outfits are both from the chapter 111 color spread. You can spot Sanji's bucket hat behind Nami's arm on the bar counter. My favorite out of the bunch is Luffy's baseball uniform, which was a design first shown on the cover of Shonen Jump volume 42 from the year 2000 and later found its home in volume 17. Of course, we also see Igaram here with his saxophone in hand and his incredible curls, which we got to see in action in the teaser trailer. Igaram is being brought to life by Yonda Thomas, and I can't wait to see more of him on screen. Here we see the Straw Hats sailing toward the Red Line, the mysterious stretch of continent that helps separate the world's oceans, with each of the 4 blues feeding into the portion known as Reverse Mountain. The Straw Hats are shown here in their outfits for the Reverse Mountain episode, and while Luffy's clothes look to remain the same between Logtown and this part of the story, the other Straw Hats get some more variation, with Usopp's outfit being inspired by his appearance in the chapter 147 color spread with the red and white bandana and the 3 watches on his arm. Nami is wearing an adaptation of her outfit from the Reverse Mountain arc, although it's now a long sleeve shirt instead of a tank top, and Zoro and Sanji can be seen in their outfits from the chapter 107 color spread. I love this scene of the Going Merry sailing up the canal, as you can get a decent look at the canals for the other oceans on the opposite side. I always thought the source material left a little too much up to the reader's own imagination. The way they're bringing it to life is also very compelling, with it almost feeling like this death ride of a roller coaster as they sail downhill. In the source material, it's framed as something much less treacherous, with the crew sitting all over the ship like it's nothing. Although I do like that they kept Usopp and Sanji holding onto each other, as Sanji and Zoro work together to keep Usopp safe. The two of them seem to be enjoying this thrill, while Usopp is not having it at all. But this joyride comes to an end as they sail right into the mouth of a giant island whale, Laboon. Speaking of, we have the shot of the Twin Capes with the lighthouses, but off in the distance you can spot 2 figures in the ocean. At first glance, you may think this is Laboon and the Going Merry, but the relative sizes are completely off, especially when you see how big Laboon is beside the ship later in the trailer. This is much more likely Laboon when he was still a young whale, meaning that the ship sailing off belongs to a pirate crew that left him under Crocus' care, a crew that we would later come to know as the Rumbar Pirates. We've known for a while now that the brief flashback on Reverse Mountain would be fleshed out to include details that would be included later on in the story, as a photo of the Rumbar Pirates ship had floated around for over a year at this point. Plus, the title card for this episode heavily featured the crew's imagery, including their Jolly Roger and a violin belonging to a certain someone who we may be getting a small glimpse of in this season. Of course, I won't go any further to preserve the big twist associated with that part of the story, but it looks like the creators of the show have finally given up on their efforts to keep a different twist under wraps with this trailer, and that starts with the scene of the crew looking off into the distance from the Going Merry. When I initially broke down the shot a few months ago, when it was first shown as part of another promotional teaser, I spoke about how this is likely the crew looking ahead toward Whiskey Peak, since you can spot a layer of snow on the railing and the ropes, which would line up with the brief patch of snow that the crew encounters after they leave Reverse Mountain. Sanji and Usopp have what looks to be paint and tools in their hands, likely from fixing up the damage the ship received from the terrible weather conditions, and perhaps most interesting was that Nami had her staff in hand, suggesting that there may be enemies aboard, such as Mr. 9 and Miss Wednesday. While we know from the source material that the Straw Hats help escort the two to Whiskey Peak, the folks behind the show were intent on keeping any affiliation between them and the Straw Hats a secret, that is, until recently. Back then, this shot was presented in such a way that you only saw the Straw Hats, but this time around, they include Vivi running off behind Zoro, and from this point on, we see her with the crew a lot. Later in the trailer, we get confirmation that they are indeed looking at Cactus Island where Whiskey Peak is located. Vivi is of course being played by Charita Chandran, who is joining the cast as a regular for Season 2 and Season 3, while Mr. 9 is being played by Daniel Lasky. This scene seems to be adapting the two's farewell when they get near Whiskey Peak, just before they jump off the edge of the ship. There's this sequence of the Straw Hats disembarking on a little garden. In this gorgeous bird's eye view shot, we get a great look at the various kinds of plants on the island, and you can spot Luffy running ahead. Behind him are some people, with the one in front looking like Nami in her little garden outfit with the blue and white long sleeve shirt. Now, this is pretty interesting since in the source material, Nami stays behind on the ship with Usopp before encountering the giant Brogy, whereas here, she seems to be trekking along with Luffy. But what makes things even more confusing is that we actually saw that scene of Nami and Usopp meeting Brogy on the ship in the first look trailer, so something else has to be going on here. Well, the only time Nami ends up running into Luffy alone in the jungle is when she and Usopp split up after getting scared by a dinosaur, but much to her surprise, it turns out that she was actually fooled by one of Mr. 3's wax statues and gets captured by his wax abilities. While in the source material, Mr. 3's wax statues were stationary for the most part, it stands to reason that he could make them move with his devil fruit powers. After all, the candelabra he creates is able to spin, so why not these statues? And if you look closely, you can actually see a very pale figure creeping up behind Nami, which may even be Mr. 3 himself. Or perhaps more likely this is just Vivi and there's a new scene being added to the live action. We then get this scene of Vivi tracking behind Luffy in the next shot, just as in the source material where the two of them pair up to explore the island. Luffy is shown in his outfit from the chapter 140 color spread, complete with the pink shorts and the red shirt with the black and white accents. I've always took these to be the folds of the cloth and the byproduct of the light source in that color spread, but here it seems that they're just part of the shirt's design. This drove us wild with speculation in the early weeks of promotion, as we wondered if these were from Miss Golden Week and her paint-related abilities. Vivi's appearance here is of course her classic outfit during the Little Garden arc, with the striped shirt and white shorts. However, the color of the shirt much more closely resembles the white which is used in the colored manga than the light green that they go with in the anime. The other major difference can be seen in the shot of Luffy and Vivi coming across a pack of brontosauruses, where you can see that her headband has been replaced with a white ribbon. In the source material, Vivi originally has a pretty ornate hairband that ends up getting broken during her clash with Miss Valentine on Whiskey Peak. She later dons a smaller but similar one when she teams up with the Straw Hats. While she does have that original hairband in the live action, it seems they may be going with this white ribbon to differentiate her normal look from her Miss Wednesday look. There's this shot of the Going Merry sailing through some snow, and while you may think this is them approaching Drum, this is actually the scene I was referring to earlier when the Straw Hats sailed into some wintry weather on the way to Cactus Island. You can tell from Usopp's outfit here with the blue and white striped shirt and the orange headband that this is just before Whiskey Peak. Then we get the scene of Igaram warning Luffy about who he can trust on the Grand Line. This seems to be taking place inside a bakery, which we actually saw the exterior of in previous promotional videos, where we also got a decent look at the inside. I know this set is going to be dripping with little Easter eggs and nods to different parts of the series. Perhaps we'll even see some very specific donuts or wedding cakes that make an appearance. There are some motivational posters on the wall, with this one reading "Save the last slice for you," and another one that goes "Sing loud, laugh hard, and something something high note," which makes me wonder if this bakery is actually run by Igaram in this series, as the poster kind of plays into his gimmick of clearing his throat like an opera singer. In the source material, Igaram was pretending to be the mayor of Whiskey Peak, going by the name Igara Boy, but it seems the live action has already departed from that facade for the character, as the casting announcement plainly listed him with his real name, while all of the other characters with secret identities had theirs kept hidden, including Vivi. Now this could just be an even deeper ploy to hide the twist behind his character, but perhaps Igaram is actually also in charge of the bakery. His favorite food is chikuwa, which is a type of Japanese fish cake, but before you count that out as a pastry, might I focus your attention to this literal crab cake that we see on display. There are also some cakes made to look like plants in terracotta pots, which could be a nod to his wife Terracotta, but maybe that's just a stretch. The menu is a bit hard to read, but you can make out some of the pies of the day, with scorpion pie up top, what looks to be camel spider pie below it, followed by East blueberry pie, lemon pie, and a one on the bottom that's hard to read. I'm not exactly sure which one it is that Luffy's seen eating here. To me, it actually looks more like apple pie based on the filling, but one thing for certain is that it's definitely not cherry pie. We then get the scene of Zoro crouching over a pile of cut fruit, looks like he may be pomegranates. His outfit here is taken directly from the chapter 128 color spread, and while he's rocking his bandana here, we do see him with a striped bucket hat in another part of the trailer. There's this pink cloth beside him, and I'm not sure exactly what this is. Perhaps this is some sort of sack that he intended on putting all the fruit in. Who knows, maybe his hunting competition with Sanji has been expanded to be about food in general instead of just meat. The real surprise with this scene comes from Miss Valentine casually descending behind him as he starts laughing almost maniacally. Lots to unpack here, but first off, let's start with Miss Valentine, who's being played by Jazara Jaslyn. Her outfit here is actually taken from her appearance later on in the Broke Works cover story. Now in the source material, Miss Valentine and Zoro don't ever really get a proper fight. While he does confront her and Mr. 5 in Whiskey Peak, Luffy ends up getting involved in an attempt to fight Zoro, and they just kind of knock the Broke Works agents out for getting in their way. I think we may actually be seeing a scene that was implied in the source material but never shown, which is how exactly Zoro ended up getting caught by Baroque Works. All we see in the manga is him coming across a statue that he thinks is Nami, and then the next time we see him, he's been captured alongside her. A lot of Mr. 3's plan is kind of off-screen in the manga, with us just seeing the end result of the crew getting captured, and that's mostly to build suspense for the reader before we find out what his deal really is. But this is exactly the kind of thing that the live action can take its time with and flesh out. It seems that Mr. 3 will be the one to capture Nami, Miss Valentine may be responsible for Zoro, and Miss Golden Week could be the one to subdue Luffy, which would leave Vivi for Mr. 5. I really like this quick bit of Zoro laughing during his fight. It could just be a way to make him look cool and show that he's really enjoying himself, but on the other hand, maybe there's some chance that he's under the influence of Miss Golden Week's color traps. We'll have to see. There's then this beautiful shot of the Going Merry sailing into the river that runs through Little Garden. Off in the distance, you can make out what looks to be the skeletal remains of the Sea Kings at the center of the island. From various cast interviews and other promotional footage, it seems that these are what are being referred to as the Giant's Cave, and it's where Dory and Brokey may live. Then we get the iconic scene of Miss All Sunday appearing on the Going Merry just after the events of Whiskey Peak, as we can see from the crew's outfits. She's being brought to life by Lyra Abova, and her outfit here is the classic purple cowboy look that you know from the anime, with some really nice detailing on the hat featuring some flower petal print. Speaking of, you may notice some pink flower petals floating in the air around here, a clear sign of her Devil Fruit abilities being used, which we'll get to see in action in just a bit. She warns Luffy that he's going to be watching his friends die, which may be an adaptation of what she says to the crew in the source material about how they're already sailing towards their death if they go to Little Garden. There's an interesting bit here where Luffy is looking up at her in anger while Vivi is astonished at him and looks down at the ground. This is likely when Miss All Sunday gifts the crew an eternal pose to the Island of Nothingness, which is an island that is just one stop before Alabasta. Luffy immediately destroys it out of principle, not wanting to go on a journey that is decided for them by their enemy. Really quick before moving on, you'll see a couple of barrels on the side of the ship here in this scene, one of which reads Tar and has the Galley Law Company logo. The Galley Law is a company of shipwrights known all over the Grand Line for their high quality ships. We've seen their logo throughout the first season of the live action on different crates and barrels, really making their prominence feel like a real part of this world. We get a scene of Sanji trekking through the jungle, fully equipped with a walking stick in his hand. His outfit in this arc is from the chapter 140 color spread with the orange shirt and black pants. This scene looks to be adapting his run-in with the T-Rex on the island. This brings us to the inside of Laboon, as someone looks to have lit a flare, illuminating the space. In the source material, the Straw Hats found themselves inside Laboon's stomach, which has been modified by Crocus to resemble the outside world. It seems the live action is grounding things a little closer to reality, as from the looks of it, this may just be part of Laboon's mouth or throat. You can see various shipwrecked debris everywhere, as well as human remains, just like in the source material, but since this may not be taking place inside Laboon's stomach, there's no ocean of stomach acid. This allows the crew to actually leave the ship and walk, as we see here, and a little bit later on we see Sanji and Usopp near the bottom of the ship, making me think that Going Merry may have actually gotten stuck, and they're working to get it out. It seems this is where they'll encounter Mr. Nine, who's covered in various barnacles and filth from being inside Laboon. At Whiskey Peak, we see Miss Valentine drop down on Vivi and Nami with her 10,000 kilo press technique, and then we get Sophia and Crusoe's Miss Golden Week taunting Luffy about how he'll never find the One Piece or be the Pirate King. As we've seen in previous footage, Miss Golden Week's easygoing picnics have been reimagined as these tea parties with creepy dolls, and we get a glimpse of her color trap abilities here with her painting on Luffy's face. Then we get a few shots of Mr. Five, played by Cameron Johnson. The outfit we see here on Little Garden is also taken from that Baroque's cover story, and I'm really happy to see they kept it intact with the shorts, the new hairstyle, and even the 5 on the chest. This is his Flintlock 44 caliber 6-shot revolver, a state-of-the-art firearm from the South Blue that he uses in conjunction with his Bomb Fruit abilities, which we get a glimpse of here as he loads the weapon with his explosive breath as part of his Breeze Breath bomb technique. We also get a shot of him using his nose fancy cannon in Whiskey Peak, but one thing you may have missed is what's behind him in these Little Garden scenes. Here you can make out the hull of a ship painted pink and brown, and in this next scene you see another part of it with some rope tied. This is likely the Pop Rock Candy, a ship used by Mr. Five and Miss Valentine that had its name revealed to us in the Vivre cards. We've never actually seen it in the source material, but we do know that they had to have some sort of ship to travel to Whiskey Peak and Little Garden. The design we see in the live action may actually be based on the ship that we saw the two of them using during the credits of the second One Piece movie, Clockwork Island Adventure. This brings us to Mr. 3, played by David Esmalchian. I love the way they brought this character to life with the very pale wax-like skin, as well as the white fingernails shaped like dripping wax. Here he's marveling at his giant wax candelabra that they set up to slowly turn the Straw Hats into wax sculptures. At the center you can see Zoro with his arms extended out and downwards, which may be him attempting to cut off his own legs to escape. We go inside Mr. 3's wax house and find Sanji in the middle of a very special phone call as Mr. 13 walks in. The teaser trailer wowed us with the inclusion of the Unluckies, Mr. 13 and Miss Friday, where we saw them chasing down Sanji with their machine gun. In that breakdown, I noted how it was a bit of a deviation for them to have met Sanji outside the house, as in the source material, their first encounter is during Sanji's phone call, but with this scene, I guess it just means they'll have a bit more of a presence in the arc. I love that they also included Mr. 13's spiked clam shells. You can really see the attention to detail on display here, with the translucence of the shells showing his paws on the other side. The inside of the wax house is also incredible, with all of the furniture and curtains being made of wax as well. The intricate design also just speaks to how much of a detail-oriented artist Mr. 3 is being portrayed to be. Mr. 13 leaps towards Sanji, and this transitions into Vivi's peacock slashers, piercing into the railing of the Going Merry. While Sanji and Usopp encounter Mr. 9 inside Laboon's stomach, it seems Nami and the rest of the crew may end up facing off against Vivi. This scene has some really neat action, as the peacock slashers have sort of been reimagined to work like grappling hooks, allowing Vivi to use them to pull herself toward wherever they're being lodged. In response to this, Nami uses her staff to avoid it. So in the source material at this point in time, Nami still has her pole arm that comes together by connecting 3 separate pieces, but in the live action, Nami's staff has been updated to extend out from the center, as we saw on display during the first season. This is definitely a more practical upgrade, as it allows her to engage in combat much faster without needing to assemble her weapon, but it also works as a nod to a future development in the series where she ends up with a pole arm that can stretch as needed. Here, we see her use the force of the staff extending out to launch herself into the air, evading Vivi's sweeping attack. This then takes us to Miss All Sunday's arrival at a marine base, a scene that they've used in pretty much every major trailer so far, and for good reason. Of course, we have the two busts on the side of the entrance with a reference to Fleet Admiral Sengoku on the left and Commander-in-Chief Kong on the right, two of the highest-ranking members of the Marines and world government. The doors swing open with a flurry of pink flower petals, a telltale sign that her Devil Fruit powers are being used. But now the big question ever since the first trailer has been, what is she doing in a Marine base, and more specifically, which Marine base is this? In the teaser trailer breakdown, I speculated that this may actually be Shellstown, just given the similarity in the hallway's appearance. There was also a still that was shared, which featured Miss All Sunday, Mr. Five, and Miss Valentine in this strange room that looked like a morgue, making me think they may have come from Mr. Seven's body after he was killed by Zoro and turned into the 153rd branch in Season 1. And with this trailer, it seems that suspicion may have turned out to be true, as we see a familiar face among the group of Marines here with Ukari, played by Richard Wright Firth. In the source material, this is the Marine who was careless with Axe-Hand Morgan's statue, but in the live action, you may remember him as the one who Nami stole her Marine uniform from in Episode 1. We actually got an extended version of the scene that was shared on social media, where we saw him beside what looks to be Ripper, the Marine who took command of the 153rd branch after Morgan's defeat in the source material. Not only that, but we did see Claire Glover, who played Warrant Officer Sada, during that table read video that Netflix put out but eventually took down. So with all of these characters showing up in this season, it seems pretty likely that we'll be revisiting Shellstown. I can't wait to see this scene in full, as everything so far has looked incredible and terrifying, with all of her limbs growing out of the Marines, killing them ruthlessly and dispersing into flower petals. This takes us to a scene of Zoro drawing his blades alongside Usopp and a bunch of Drum Island citizens. Zoro's appearance here comes from his second outfit in the arc, which he takes from one of Apple's guards, while Usopp's is also directly adapting his look in Drum. Beside them is Maria Onion Bear, the large lady that Usopp and Luffy mistook for the hiking bear in the source material. Behind them, you can spot some furs hanging out to dry, one of them belonging to a Lapan, the large monstrous rabbit-like creatures that live on the island. It looks like this scene may be adapting the battle between Zoro and a group of Wapol soldiers that were preventing the townsfolk from saving Dalton. We get the scene of Usopp and Luffy preparing their counterattack on Baroque Works after the rest of the crew had been captured. The pose Luffy strikes is taken directly from the source material, and I suppose this is as good a time as any to mention the distinct lack of a certain spot-build duck in these scenes. Karoo is Vivi's companion and a fan favorite from this era of the series, so it would definitely be amiss for them to leave him out of the season. That said, there is a ton of CGI and special effects required for everything else going on, so I could understand if this is where they decided to cut corners. Then again, they did include Mr. 13 and Miss Friday, who are arguably less relevant than the beloved duck of ours, so maybe they're keeping him as a surprise for when the episodes actually come out. Fingers crossed. There's this shot of Sanji sliding down the ropes with the Going Merry. His appearance here is directly adapting his Drum Island outfit, and this scene looks to be taking place just before they arrive on the island when he was up in the crow's nest. We get our first look at Jeff Ward in this season, reprising his role of Buggy the Clown. His blue face paint has been updated to match his look during the Logtown arc, although the crossbones on his forehead have been carried over from his previous look. The vertical white lines over his eyes are a new addition that really help to bring the look together. On the throne there's an arm beside him, likely Kabaji, or perhaps we'll get a better rendition of Moji this time around. This scene of Luffy swinging around with his powers looks really cool. I feel like the rubber effects have gotten a lot better since the first season. Beside him, you can spot what looks to be the device that Crocus uses to give tranquilizing shots to Laboon, and since they moved away from having the story take place inside his stomach, it only makes sense that the medicine has to be administered from the outside. And given the crosshairs on top, I imagine it works like a cannon that has to be shot at Laboon from a distance. This seems to be Crocus seeing Luffy's powers in action for the first time, leaving him with a shocked expression, and Crocus is being played by Clive Russell in this season. We get the scene of Usopp being chased around the candelabra by Miss Valentine, with Mr. Five standing off to the side. This looks to be adapting a scene from the manga, but once again, Karoo is nowhere in sight, leaving Usopp to run on foot. It looks like Miss Valentine may have a slight wardrobe change in this arc, as we see her here with sneakers, while in every other scene, she's wearing these shoes with heels. This is likely so she can actually run without putting herself in danger, but I wonder if it'll get worked into the continuity in some way. In this bird's eye view shot, you'll notice Vivi, Zoro, and Nami have already been turned into wax sculptures by this point. Zoro is striking that cool pose he wanted to go out in, and you probably notice the candles are not lit in the scene, which I suppose makes sense if the wax process is already complete. Now, one thing you'll notice in this scene is that there are no signs of giants anywhere. In the source material, the candelabra was set up not too far away from where Dory and Brogy had their previous duel, and as such, Brogy would end up getting subdued by Mr. 3's wax right next to it. It may be that the creatives behind the show are approaching this in a different way and having the giants get dealt with elsewhere. We did see Mr. 3 inside the giant's cave in a previous trailer, so it could be that he subdues them there. Then we get our first look at Dr. Kureha, played by Katie Seagal. We've never really seen her use a firearm before in the source material, as she's more fond of throwing knives, but this is a pretty cool look for her character. We have a shot of Usopp taking down some of Buggy's crew in the Logtown Carnival, as we've seen from the very first set tour with Jeff Ward over a year ago. The Logtown arc has been reimagined to take place on Marine Victory Day, a holiday celebrating the anniversary of Gold Roger's execution. If you want to learn more about that, I recommend checking out that set tour breakdown for more details, but for the purposes of this breakdown, all you need to know is that there's a carnival in Logtown, which makes for the perfect setting for Buggy and his crew to blend in. There's a shooting game in the background back with a sign that says "Shoot the pirate," really giving you a good sense of the propaganda going on here. And I wonder if we'll get a nod to Usopp's duel with Daddy Masterson in this setting. When Usopp's target gets knocked out, we can see some of the levels on the test of strength, one of which does read Weak Duck, playing with our hopes of seeing Karoo once again. There's this incredible sequence of Zoro fighting off all the Baroque Works bounty hunters. We keep seeing bits and pieces of the scene, and I really can't wait to get the whole thing. I'm sure it's going to be insane. Zoro says "good sword" to the Sandai Katetsu. This is probably part of him learning to control the cursed sword, just like in the source material where it was giving Zoro some issues. We have this scene adapting the Straw Hat sailing toward Drum from a distance, and we get the great bit of Luffy drawing his amateur Straw Hat Jolly Roger on Laboon. This takes us to what may be my favorite scene from the trailer, Dory and Brogy using their iconic technique, Hakoku Sovereignty. Dory is played by Werner Coaster and Brogy by Brendan Murray, and together they cut down into the ocean, sending a giant slice of water toward the humongous creature. This is known as the Island Eater, a giant goldfish that is known to consume entire islands and leave their remains as waste. This technique has been reimagined just a bit, since in the source material, this attack is more of a shockwave caused by the giants swinging their weapons. We get some heartfelt Straw Hat moments, including Luffy and Usopp looking up at the giants. Nami and Sanji have a moment potentially about Sanji's concern for her well-being, and Luffy gives a sentimental speech to Zoro, who does not seem too enthused. I wonder if this is going to be some adaptation of the Luffy and Zoro conflict on Whiskey Peak. We then go inside Drum Castle, where we get some really great scenes with Luffy, Vivi, and Wapol, who's played by Rob Coletti. There's this really cool POV shot of Wapol's mouth shifting and changing shape, likely standing in for his body transforming, and we see him launch a cannonball from his arm, something that we've seen him do in the source material after his Munch Munch House technique. I like that Vivi's getting more of an active role in this conflict against Wapol in the live action, especially considering that they do have a bit of history together. In the source material, she spends most of the Drum arc alongside Usopp, Zoro, and Dalton before reuniting with the rest of the crew at the end. Plus, with the rumors that Wapol will be working alongside Baroque Works in this arc, it makes a lot of sense for Vivi to be an even more important character for the finale. And of course, Vivi is wearing the same outfit that she had in the Drum Island arc. Also, I can't wait until we get these episodes in full, as there are already so many little details across the set design and the props in the castle that we don't have a great look at just yet. There were some stills shared on social media from these episodes, and one of them included a better look at Wapol. And behind him is this statue that bears some resemblance to the Snow Queen snow sculpture that Usopp makes on his way to Whiskey Peak. You'll also notice some feathers falling down from above, likely meaning that we'll be seeing the snowbirds that got in Wapol's way in the source material. Now, the explosion that we see here is actually from a different scene, and given the group of characters that we see in the back, this is likely the explosion in Drum Castle during Chopper's flashback. You can see a group of people in pink in the background. This is the Doctor's 20. On the wall is of course a stained glass rendition of Wapol himself, and beneath it you can spot his throne, which seems to be a little less cute in this adaptation. Now, beside the throne, you can make out at least two characters shielding Wapol. On the left is KM, or Kuro Marimo, played by Anton David Jephthah. Since this is taking place in the past, he has on his cloak from Chopper's flashback. And on the other side, it's a bit hard to make out, but you can spot a green jacket and a large shield or weapon on his back, likely a spade, meaning this is Dalton, played by Tai Keo. We've yet to see Mark Penwell's chest just yet in any promo footage, but hopefully we'll get that amazing scene of him standing on top of the water. This brings us to our first look at Chopper's base reindeer form as he runs into what looks to be the castle grounds, thinking this may be just after that explosion. And then we get an extended version of the scene from previous promotional footage of Sanji and Luffy meeting Chopper for the first time. Sanji had sustained major injuries to his back, and Luffy had to be placed in warm water, hence the two of them being shirtless here. In the source material, the two of them immediately try and eat Chopper, whereas here they seem to be a little more infatuated with how cute he is. There's a box on this table here that reads potions, really playing into Kureha's witch motif, and this takes us to a quick montage of the Straw Hats in action, with Zoro fighting the bounty hunters in Whiskey Peak, Luffy using the Gum Gum pistol at Twin Cape. Giving his location the fact that he's sending this into the ocean, I wonder if this is actually from his fight with Laboon. Miss Valentine uses her 10,000 kilo guillotine technique, dropping down on Usopp as Nami comes in to knock her away, just like in the source material, and it looks like Usopp will be sustaining some serious damage from his fights in this arc. We get this really cool scene of Sanji squaring off against KM, or Kuro Marimo, meaning their brief clash will get extended, and Sanji's outfit here looks to be from his appearance in the chapter 128 color spread, and a fun detail, in the background you'll spot Kureha's torture chair. And then we have Smoker delivering a double white fist technique, presumably at Luffy on the other side. Given the location, this is probably during that fight that we've been seeing for a while now with Luffy's Gum Gum Gatling in Loguetown. We get this bit with Luffy protecting Hero Luke's flag, recreating the iconic scene from Drum Island, though there are some very noticeable differences. First of all, this looks to be taking place indoors as the flag is pinned up on a wall, and you can spot these red triangles underneath, which match what we saw in the castle's interior from prior footage and stills. Luffy is looking downwards here, so at the very least you can expect this to still be taking place somewhere high up, but it makes me wonder why his sleeve is ripped off here, since in the source material, he removed it to tie up the flag. It could be that there's more to this that we're not seeing, we'll just have to see. And the trailer's penultimate scene is Chopper on the Going Merry as he exclaims that this is the most fun he's ever had, adapting his line from when he finally joins the crew, which is of course cut with Luffy exclaiming to wrap things up. Okay, that's about it for everything in this trailer, but there's still a ton that I didn't mention here that we covered in the previous trailers and promotional teasers. So if you haven't checked out my breakdowns for those just yet, I highly recommend that you do. There'll be a link in the description where you can find all of those. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much for sticking around. I really appreciate your patience, as it's been a really busy week, but I wanted to take my time with this breakdown. The best way to show your support for the channel is by subscribing and leaving a comment on the video. Special thank you to my channel member Tanoon, and if you're interested in supporting the channel monetarily, you can become a YouTube member or check out the OPX Patreon, which I've just set up after several requests over the years. There's currently just one tier right now, but more perks and tiers will be added soon. But ultimately, I'd really just love it if you subscribe to the channel so we can grow the community and so you can get all of my videos as soon as they come out. Season 2 drops in just a few weeks, and I'll be putting out in-depth breakdowns on each episode, so you don't want to miss out on that. Thank you so much for watching, stay safe, and I hope to see you in the next one.